Hey folks, this is Asif Sharif, and I'm excited to talk about Copilot. So Copilot will be being released in our next version, um, targeted for a July release. This is basically a preview of what's coming. Um, there's actually various things that we're going to be introducing in the new version, including version and variant package management, the new Smart View, Copilot, um, test plan and execution reporting, and the significant enhancements to various user interface within modern requirements. We'll get into the details of those another day. But today, let's focus on Copilot. So in March of this year, late March, at a Microsoft conference in Lisbon, Portugal, we announced with Microsoft that we'll be developing and releasing Copilot. We did a early product demo at that conference, and there was just an enormous amount of positive feedback we got, which only accelerated the work we are doing on this. This is phase one of at least 3 phases we have currently planned. These are some basic building blocks, but you'll see this is very exciting in itself. But in due course, you will see a lot more intelligence coming through with Copilot. So Copilot is your artificial intelligent assistant that can do a lot of grunt work for you so that you are focusing more on your business needs and not just researching and thinking for ideas, and you're working with your stakeholders to identify what really needs to be done for your business needs. Our expectation is threefold. By using Copilot, you'll be more efficient, do work faster, you will create better quality requirements, test cases, risk analysis, and so on. And as users of Copilot, we feel that you'll be much more happier with the systems. So people generally who use AI systems tend to be more content with what they're doing. So let's get into it. So right now I've selected in the background customer relationship management. It's one of our enterprise applications, and I want to elicit requirements on it. So we'll start with elicitation. So we'll go to elicitation and we'll say, you know what, I'd really like to define, have Copilot recommend features for CRM. And I've told it that the input it should take is the title, the description and acceptance criteria for this thing, and recommend certain things. Now I've selected all, and what it is now doing is actually determining more details for each one of these. So if you look at the left-hand side, okay, if you're building a CRM, certainly you need a contact management system, a lead management, opportunity management, sales forecasting, and so on and so forth, right? So obviously, it's got a pretty good recommendation set here. And you can request more records if you wanted to. And so now it's going to go and get all the details behind each one of these. And what it's trying to determine is the acceptance criteria and the description for each one of these. Okay. So for contact management, it's come up with a bunch of things. For lead management, it's come up with a bunch of things. And for every one of them, it's come up with a bunch of requirements, acceptance criteria and description for you. Now, you may choose to not use them and just uncheck it, or you might say, no, you know what, I like these. These are good starting point. So let me go ahead and create these as child PBIs, child features to this epic. So I'll go and say create. Now, when these work items are created, we create a tag in the work item that says that this record was created based on the Copilot's analysis. Okay, so if you look at this one here, you will see that we have the details here, the acceptance criteria there, and there's a tag that says Copilot for DevOps. So this means this was created by Copilot. Now, of course, you can come back here and you can see it's linked to the epic. You can modify this. Maybe this is not exactly what you want. Maybe it's only 80% correct. But for me to start from scratch and define all of these would have been a lot of work. Now I can be much more surgical in terms of what my organization needs, as opposed to defining everything from scratch. So that's one. The other is, so let's take a look at sales forecasting. Now, contact management, I understand a lot more. Sales forecasting, I don't. So defining requirements for something like that may actually be much harder for me. So I'm going to go to Elicit again. And this time, I'm going to tell it to define my product backlog item, as in my requirements, and have him go and make recommendations on that. So now it's identifying on the left-hand side here various PBIs that, of course, you can pick them one by one. I'm just being quick to select all of them, then it can just generate all the acceptance criteria and description from it. And again, once it generates all of this data, you can review it, choose the ones you want to actually include in your smart doc, in your version package, in your backlog, wherever you invoke this from, because Copilot is going to be available in all of those places and more. And one of the things that we are looking at is doing a batch process for requirements elicitation, where you can let it go for an hour. It's going to collect a ton of information for you, and then you can segment the data, navigate the data, and pull things in as you need to. And that's going to be very interesting, but that's going to be out in phase 2, hopefully. So you can see it's actually giving me the real-time updates for sales forecasting. It's telling me what the description is, what the acceptance criteria is, and so on and so forth. If I'm sitting with my subject matter expert, the SME can tell me which one of these are valid and if this is correct. So we're not starting from scratch. We are starting from a much more intelligent place, right? So this would be helpful. We have tried this on a variety of domains, and the results we are getting is 8 out of 10 times is pretty amazing. A couple of times it needs more fine tuning, but in most cases, it's actually getting it very well. So I've got this PBI now. So let's take a look at the details of the PBI. So this is about sales forecasting, and it's got my acceptance criteria in there. It's linked to the feature for which it was built. It's about developing the algorithm for accurate sales forecasting. And so how about testing? So if I'm going to be testing, what I can do here is I can go here and I can say, what I'd like to do is to get some suggestions on test cases. So now it's going to go and make recommendation on various test cases. So it wants us to verify the system can accurately predict future sales. That the system can handle large amounts of data. It can generate reports and visualization, and so on and so forth. So again, we can take some of them or all of them and get the step level details and the description of each of these test cases and show it to us. And as before, we'll be able to click on it, see the steps, see the steps, see the steps, and whichever ones we like, we can leave checked on, and then we can go and create and add these. Oh yeah, you can actually change the link type. So if you wanted to create the link type for tested by, you would have changed it there, and it would have created the appropriate link type in there. And so the test cases now have been created as well. So now this is getting updated, and these are all the test cases. And if we go ahead and take a look at the steps, so these are the test steps. This is the parent of it. And so now it's really, it was looking at this title, this description, this acceptance criteria to come up with this test case and the other test cases. It did. And so now you may decide that you don't want something doesn't make sense. Just go ahead and delete this one if you don't need it. Or you should have never published it, or either way, or you can modify it, or however. But you can see the power of this, right? It's understanding your context. It's creating the information for you, but before it creates it, it shows it to you, so you can determine the validity of it, right? So that's for the test cases. Now, let's say that I have this contact management, and let's go into Copilot and try some other tasks. So far, we've just used elicitation, which certainly is my favorite, but there's a few really good ones. So one is analysis. So what analysis does is that it will study the various information that you choose from here and will tell you how things are. So actually, let me choose, let me just see which one has more content, and then we choose that one. Okay, so this one is good. So let's just choose this one. So this one, we'll go in there, and and we can ask it to tell us what the analysis is. But what we can also do is we can actually have it. Actually, no. Let's generate this first, and then we'll take a look at some others. So what this is doing. So you know how developers tend to have code reviews. So somebody's going to review their code and tell them how to make it better, or if there are concerns. From a requirements point of view, some people do that people will review requirements and finalize it. This is an automation of that. Okay, so it's looking at sales forecasting description and acceptance criteria and saying in terms of clarity, it's going to give it 7 out of 10. Now, of course, this is just from a Copilot perspective, and it's telling you what are possible problems. So it says, but there are terms like accurately. But of course, the word accurately is not a good term because it's rather nebulous. So use more precise term. And then it's telling you further how you can improve. So say 5%, for example. Okay. And likewise, it's going through and identifying. In some cases, it's giving it 9, 8, and telling you how to improve it, and so on. Now, how wonderful is this? Because one of the challenges you certainly run into, and we do all the time, is we write requirements and we didn't think far enough. We didn't think, we couldn't contemplate certain scenarios. But if the system can make recommendations, and then you can decide whether you want to address it or not, at least you are making an informed choice to exclude it as opposed to just missing out on it. So that's one, right? And there is a more advanced version of this coming as well, and so on. But let's take a look at another one. Oh yeah. So what if I want to summarize, right? So I might say, I've got a title, acceptance criteria, and description. And what I would like to do is summarize this information. And so just give me a two-liner or whatever. So here's a two-liner. And then you can put the summary in another field if you want, so that people can just, if you want to just grasp this, the essence of it, you can do that. Then, oh yeah, so let's say you're a use case guy, right? You like to work with use cases. Somebody has given you a few paragraphs of text, but you would rather have it converted into a use case format. So it's going to analyze and come up with a use case. So here's my use case name, here's an actors, here's my preconditions, here's my post conditions. And then it'll define our scenarios. And then exceptions. Right. So certainly a lot easier to read with this format. But it's up to you, right? I mean, you can have the data transformed if you want to. If you like this format, that's fine, but you can do it either ways. But you know what? One of my favorites is Gherkin. So Gherkin is generally used for test-driven development, and I find it very easy to read because it identifies your feature, then the different scenarios, and then says given, when, then statements to clarify every scenario. So those of us who are dyslexic, like I am, this becomes extremely helpful because it provides a way to read that's a lot more structured and can be absorbed much better. I think the retention on this format is much better, right? So that's the Gherkin format. And oh, by the way, at this point, you can either create a new work item based on this Gherkin that would be linked to the source work item, or you can simply replace this information in one of your rich text fields. Of course, you can always copy it from this top right icon. You can convert things to a user story format, which this is very close to. But if you did want to see that, it will do that conversion for you. So as a sales and marketing team member, blah, blah, blah. And then write down your acceptance criteria there. But yeah, at any time you can sort of click on stop generation, so it'll stop doing whatever it's doing. Further to that, you have got translate. So we were doing a test earlier where we converted to one language and then back to English and then compared the text. It was done exceptionally well. You'll find nearly all languages people commonly use. Obviously, there's more than these languages, but I think you'll find your language selection to be pretty good. So let's say you're working with a German partner and you want to give them requirements in German, you can create it in English, have it translated for you. And we have had this reviewed by people that were fluent in German and Dutch and Arabic and Chinese, and all of them said the translation was very good. So now it's writing this in German. So you got your translation happening, and the other thing I'm going to do is, let's see what else we have here, elaborate. So what elaborate does, it basically takes the content and adds more information to it. So you might have a one-liner, or you might have one paragraph, but you want it to elaborate on it. So it's going to then extend that information so that you have more content that you can then go through and fine tune it as you need to. I'm going to stop generation there, go back to home. So these are some of our, for release 1, these are the ones. In release 2 onwards, there's going to be a lot more there. Of course, as you are using Copilot, you'll come through certain use cases and you say, you know what, Asif, if we could only do this, life would be so much better. Then please reach out and let us know what you'd like to have. And as you know, we are constantly evolving a product based on our clients' feedback. Once in a blue moon, somebody from within my team will have an epiphany and we'll go build something. But the lion's share of the work we do is really based on our client feedback. The one thing that that I want to show you is that Copilot there's a kill switch with Copilot, and that means that you can turn it off. Now, so if artificial intelligence is not allowed in your organization for some reason, then your administrator can turn it off at the org level and you don't have to worry about it. We are using OpenAI technology with Microsoft, Azure services to facilitate these functions, and the data is secure. It is not being stored. It is encrypted in transit, and so from a security point of view, Microsoft and OpenAI have assured us, and in public, that this data is not used for training and is secure. But nevertheless, in the event that somebody is concerned, we have made sure that we provide the kill switch. So you can turn it off and then people don't have to worry about anything that their IT or security groups might be concerned about. So that is the Copilot.